Welcome to Laughter's the Best Medicine.
Our guest today, tough as nails. He can write the manual on resiliency, served 9.5 years as a U.S. Navy SEAL, earned his MBA from Warton School of Business as a Tillman Military Scholar, worked at Google, recently co-founded the wellness company Madefor. Pat Dossett. This guy's a stud.
From Forbes to Fast Company, Madefor is getting a lot of buzz these days. Pat started with his longtime friend and fellow entrepreneur, Blake Myckosie, the founder of Tom's. Madefor is a mental health and wellness company with a program to help people build sustainable, healthy, and powerful habits to change their lives.
And what I loved is they assembled a team of some of the best minds in psychology, neuroscience, health, and wellness, trying to create an incredible game-changing journey for people. The tools, challenges, and support the program offers, they're unique, but I think it's the philosophy and mission behind Madefor that really are going to resonate with people, particularly now.
And Pat is clearly a person who's on a mission to make a difference in people's lives, from serving as a Navy SEAL to now helping people with their mental health and wellness.
And talk about a guy you can learn from. I can't wait to hear how he continues to work on his own resiliency and figure out what we can learn from him to apply to our lives.
I'm sure Pat's going to have some awe-inspiring and wild stories to share.
Well, let's find out. Here he is, Pat Dossett.
Hey guys.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
We are doing great. Pat, before we really get into it, this is Laughter is the Best Medicine.
Yeah.
And the question we always want to know is, when was the last time you had a really good laugh?
Oh my God. I've got 3 kids under 2. It happens every single day.
Is it laughter or crying? I'm not sure at that point.
Yeah, it's a fine line, but a lot of laughter in this house. I've got twin daughters that are 22 months old. They know they're at the age where they know exactly what buttons to push, and they know that it's funny. And it is, you got to find the humor in it. Otherwise you're going to go crazy. So
there's so much we want to ask you about Madefor, but before we take that deep dive into that, can you take us back into your childhood? And we really want to know how you turned a book that you read when you're 13 years old into a career as a Navy SEAL.
Oh, wow. You've done your research. Wow. My father from a very young age, he said, life is so easy, Pat. He said, 99% of the decisions you face are going to be, there's 2 options. There's an easy option and a hard option. He said, just do the hard thing and then life is very easy. And he beat that drum so much that I think I just internalized it to a point that when I read that book, I said, oh, wow, that's the hardest thing that you can possibly do. I think that's what I have to do. And that set my course going forward. And so probably a lot of very small, mundane steps to get there, but I was fortunate enough out of high school to get an appointment to the Naval Academy, and then fortunate enough graduated from the academy to get an appointment or a slot to SEAL training, and then went from there. So yeah, I think just a desire for adventure and to do hard things that matter, that serve big missions, and here I am.
That's amazing, because to me, that strikes me as very counterintuitive to what we often hear is, as you said, the hard path turns out to give you an easier life. But I think everyone's looking for the easier road. Now, you just kind of glossed over some amazing accomplishments. First of all, getting into the Naval Academy, graduating. But I think we have such an appreciation and a fascination with the SEALs. And we've all heard about the endurance. We've heard about Hell Week, and I believe I've watched a couple movies. I believe it's called Buds, which sounds to be like the real training. But take us through what it's like going through that SEAL training when it seems the goal is to really make people quit because they want to know, do you have the endurance, and how do you prepare for something like that where this is going to be truly the hard route?
Well, I think, it's really interesting. My class, we started with around 220 people. And so Buds is about a 7-month-long training program. It's all volunteer. Everyone goes through a lot of hurdles to get there. And so they've passed all the physical standards and they've just done a lot of work. And so everyone that shows up is committed, has a strong desire to be a SEAL, and has all the natural gifts that they need to be successful. That 220 over the course of 5 weeks got winnowed down to 150. In the 6th week, it got winnowed down to 36. And then that 36 later ended up getting narrowed down to 17 people. So 220 to 150 to 36 to 17. And I think that the thing that strikes me is that those 17 people that were there at the end, rather unremarkable. Like you wouldn't have been able to pick them out from a lineup. There was nothing about them that you would say, oh, that person's definitely going to make it. And in fact, all the biggest, fastest, strongest people, all some of the first to quit, all some of the first to go away. And I think, you know, your show is so aptly named and fits very well with one of the defining characteristics that I think allows those 17 people to be there at the end, which is, can you laugh when things get really hard? Can you have this orientation to recognize what's funny or what's good, even when things are really, really bad? And if you can find the humor, sometimes that humor comes at your own physical expense. But if you can find it, then you know that, hey, I can last a little bit longer. And that just continue to play out over time. And then you're there at the end.
So you're dreaming up becoming a SEAL since you were a teenager. Yeah. And you get there, boots on the ground. And I'm curious, did you ever want to just ring that bell and go, tapped out?
You know what's funny? I never thought about ringing the bell. But the very first day I showed up to Buds, there is a road that leads from, a paved road that leads from the barracks where everyone stays to the main training compound where you have to do all of your training. And for the first few days, you're allowed to just go down the paved road. But at some point, you get out of your whites, you put on camouflage uniform and your boots, and you're told you can only run down the sandy part now. And so deep, soft sand. I remember distinctly the first time I was going down the sand part, thinking to myself, like, wow, my heart's beating fast. I'm getting kind of winded. I'm only jogging 400 meters. Like, this sand's really deep. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be really hard. And it was just this short distance from the barracks to the training center. But obviously over time you get used to it and you move through it. But
to go from 222 or whatever down to 17, what is the mindset to survive that? What does it take to push through as people are ringing the bell?
Yeah, this is a great question and an important one. And so Andrew Huberman and I often talk about this idea of moving the horizon. And so when you recognize that you have the ability to move the horizon, that is a place that feels comfortable to you, that you can be in pursuit of, and that you can achieve that, then you end up just playing that game over and over again through the course of Buds. So it doesn't matter if it's in first phase or if it's in Hell Week or if it is just in a part of training, you're constantly thinking about, can I make it to the next day? Sometimes if it's really stressful, it's, can I make it to the next meal? Sometimes it's like you have a boat on your head, you're running, your eyes can see 50 feet in front of you. You can say, okay, I think I can make it 50 feet. And then once I get there, I'll reassess. So you're constantly playing this game with yourself of moving the horizon to a place that feels comfortable and where you can be in pursuit of. But then the other part of it is and SEALs might not use this word, but I think having a very strong sense of gratitude helps a great deal. And the definition I love of gratitude more than anyone is this idea of, do you have an orientation, or can you cultivate an orientation to recognize and celebrate the good, no matter the situation you find yourself in? And so, laughter is the best medicine. We lean on that heavily in SEAL training, oftentimes at our own physical expense. But can you find the silver lining? Can you find the humor? Can you find what is great about a given moment, even when it's really bad? If you can, then it'll allow you to continue a little bit further. It'll give you some energy and lift you up. And I'll never forget, I had a little segue story here. I remember in Hell Week, I think it was day 2 or day 3, it was day 2, we were going to do another round of surf torture. So that's when we lock arms, we walk into the water, we sit down, we lay back, and you stay there. And the instructors have these tables that tell them how long they can leave you in the water, where you get to hypothermic and they bring you back out and exercise you and then put you back in the water, and you play that game over and over and over again. And I remember going out to do a round of surf torture, and I looked next to me, and I was locked arms with one of my classmates from the academy, a guy named Garrett, one of my best friends. And Garrett looks at me and he says, "These instructors are idiots, Patty." And I said, "What do you mean, Garrett?" He said, they think they can make us colder. They're so dumb. And I just kind of like laughed and giggled. And then I remember later that night going back into another round of surf torture, locked arms and arms. I looked over and Garrett's with me, and he said, "Yo, Patty." I said, "What's up?" He said, "I was wrong." And right there, it was like all the stress, all the pain just went away. It was just like, I'm having a fun moment with my friend in the surf in Southern California. It's all good. So.
By the way, the fact that the SEALs use laughter is the best medicine, and I use that saying as well. I feel like I'm close to a SEAL now. Pat.
There you go.
Thank you for giving me this courage.
I believe you have it in you.
Honorary member.
Right.
So you spend 9.5 years doing something that most of us only imagine by watching movies like SEAL Team 6. And then you leave to go to graduate school and get your MBA. What was that transition like? Because that's a really major transition. And I'm wondering what that experience was like for you.
It was so hard, so challenging. And, deciding to leave the teams was one of the hardest things one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I did a lot of thinking when I was approaching this decision point. And what I recognized is I love diving and shooting and jumping and blowing things up. And I loved the guys and the traveling and all that stuff. It's great. It's a lot of fun. But what I loved most about being in the teams was taking a small group of people that were committed to one another and committed to a big mission and having large positive outsized effects. And so I viewed transitioning out of the teams was I didn't have to let go of that part of it, right? I went to business school as a way to get some different tools and some different perspectives, but ultimately I still wanted to find myself in a place where working with a small group of committed people on big missions that matter. And so that allowed me to transition with peace of mind. But, I have a lot of friends that are professional athletes and they express the same thing. Like, especially I think when you're involved in something that is so physical in nature and the consequence of action is so high, it can be a little bit disorienting when you're outside of that and you're no longer like the physicality of what you're doing doesn't matter, or maybe the consequences aren't as great, or even just the concept of service. When you're in the teams, every single thing you do is about the mission. That's what you focus on. And so it doesn't matter if you're doing a workout or you're doing, working on your gear, or you're with your buddies, your teammates at a bar. You're constantly thinking about how are we bonding as a team and building effectiveness towards that mission, or toward being able to affect that mission. And when you don't have that, when you get on the outside, you're going through business school, or you find yourself in the corporate world, all of a sudden it's a little bit of a different set of metrics, and that can be a little disorienting. But I think over time, as long as you stay true to your values and your mission, then everything works out.
By the way, I feel like this is a masterclass on leadership and mindset. Where I'm taking notes as you're speaking, and it's just incredible the way your ability, I think, to really distill the essence of these concepts and the things that motivate you at truly the highest level, where teamwork is literally life and death. And working with these groups to have a purpose. So after your MBA, you go to Google. How did you find it there? Because we know Google is one of the biggest companies, has this ability for the reach, but how is that transition going in there? How was your mission at Google?
Yeah, it is, just a snapshot. So I think Google tends to skew a little bit younger at people coming in. So I was old going through business school. I think I was 32, and then going to Google, I was a little bit older for the MBA people that were coming into Google. And I remember our first intern day, they give you these propeller hats, and they took us all to see the movie The Intern, where Will Ferrell was
that movie.
Yeah, great movie, hilarious. Will Ferrell's amazing. But I remember just sitting there in these propeller hats and looking around the room thinking like, oh man, one of us is not like the other. Like, I feel a little bit like a fish out of water. But what I found is that really, really smart people, committed, like big missions, and genuinely wanted to do good things. And that I could get excited about. That was exciting to me. And so I think one of the things that I took away from Google is this idea that focus on big missions that matter, right? And so Google, when they think about solving problems, they're not thinking about working on things on the order of a few thousand or even 100,000. They're thinking about what solves a problem or moves the needle for 1 billion people, and let's focus our effort and energy on that. And that's a really helpful framework or mindset to be able to take on, or lens to see things through. And grateful for the experience.
So, what was the moment that you decided to create Madefor, and can you tell us a little bit about how it started?
Yeah. So there's a couple of points here that connect. So one is my time in the teams and coming out of there, and just this recognition of how much mindset plays into performance, and how some very foundational basic things allow people to push their bodies and push their minds to places maybe they never thought possible. And so I always thought, well, that's really fascinating. And I think that's something that exists inside everyone. This is not unique to SEALs. It's not unique to professional athletes. This capacity or capability exists inside everyone. But I was sitting in again, the old guy in the back of the class. I was auditing an undergraduate class in business school taught by a woman, Dr. Angela Duckworth. And it was, Angela's very well known for her research in grit, and grit is a determining factor for success. And as someone that isn't naturally good at anything, I really valued that. I was like, well, this is cool. I'm going to like this. But she was teaching a class on positive psychology. So an introduction to positive psychology. And I'm not someone that is into soft guru type practices. But what I found in that course was this was a very rigorous scientific endeavor or pursuit. So a gentleman named Dr. Martin Seligman founded this field or championed this field out of the University of Pennsylvania. And the field is built on the premise of in any psychological or psychiatric or physical or mental intervention, there's really two sides of the equation. One side is, can we focus on harm reduction, minimizing downside risk, stopping bad behaviors? But the other side of the equation is, what can we do that helps us grow what's good inside us? What are the positive things that we can be in pursuit of, whether they're mindsets, actions that we take, or things that we change in our environment that allow us to unlock our potential and be our best? And what I found fascinating about that is it very much mapped to my experience in the SEAL team. So what they were proving out in labs was what I saw firsthand being practically applied in really stressful environments. And so that for me was the first time I saw a connection. I was like, I really want to work on something in this area. But it wasn't until a couple of years later, I was on a surf trip with one of my best friends, Blake Myckosie. He's a former founder of Tom's Shoes. And Blake and I aligned on this mission of, hey, if we can help individuals show up better in the world for themselves, then the knock-on effects of that are that everyone that they encounter is going to be lifted up and be better off. And so we got excited about the potential of working on this mission of making the world a better place, one person at a time. And that's really how we got started. We also recognized at the outset that we weren't the experts and we weren't going to pretend to be. And so it was very important that what we were building was very much grounded in science, and that we only put forth practices or put forth on offering that was grounded in evidence-based research and using the best science. And so the first advisor that we brought on to help us build this program, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Andrew Huberman, runs the Huberman Lab. He's a neuroscientist. And one of the things that Andrew studies is this phenomenon of neuroplasticity, that over the entire course of our life, we can rewire our brain. And we think about our brain as a proxy for behaviors, for mindsets, for whatever kind of change we want to make, that we have this capacity. But past the age of 25, it takes a very deliberate style of engagement for the brain in how you're directing your focus and attention and effort to create that change. And so that's how we designed the program. We brought along a bunch of really smart people, far smarter than I am, to help us build it. And that's how we ended up with it.
It's fascinating because to me, I was a doctor before I was in entertainment, and I always felt we focused on putting the fires out after they'd started. And what I love is this idea of addressing it beforehand, never letting those fires get started, this positive approach. But the thing that struck me too is, and by the way, it's so popular, I tried to sign up, it's waiting list only at this point, but the program's also analog. Everything seems to be going into a digital space. So how did that come about, this idea of going against the grain where everybody wants a ring or a watch or your phone to tell you what to do, going analog?
Right. Yeah. So cool that you highlighted that point. I think that I think what started out as some intuition and just based on my experience, but very quickly married up with the science and in discussions with Andrew, is that feel very strongly that if you have to look at an app, a screen, a device, something outside yourself to tell you how you're performing or how you're feeling, you've missed a critical first step. And that first step really is, can you sense into and understand the signals and cues your body is sending to you and how best to respond to those in real time? Anytime you have to lean on something outside yourself, again, to say how you're performing or feeling, you're in essence giving up agency. You're giving up a level of control, and you're pushing your dependency onto things outside of yourself. And what I firmly believe, and what our whole program is built on, is that you have the answers inside you. It's just a matter of, can we engage in some practices, get into sustained action over time in such a way that you can trust your body better, your brain better, and know how to pull those levers in a unique way that's right for you, because we all have a unique path towards, our best physical and mental health.
By the way, I just literally, I wrote that down, that idea of looking to external measures, giving up the agency.
Yeah.
I put 3 stars by it, because I think that really is resonating with me as something I know that I do. I'm always checking my watch and my phone. Susie, on the other hand, she's much more intuitive.
So I want to go back in the moment and talk about Andrew Huberman. I'm a big fan, as Matt knows. I read someplace that he had you sign up to do an experiment with him that you called to be one of the most interesting stories that happened before you started your career at Madefor. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that entailed?
Yeah, this is I think this is a great story. So Andrew and I met by happenstance. My wife and his sister were friends and introduced us. We had, I think, maybe a 5-minute conversation, but over the course of that 5-minute conversation, at the end of it, Andrew said, "I'm doing this study in a couple of weeks, and I really think you should join me. I think you would enjoy it." And he said, "Would you like to?" He said, "We're going to travel for a few days." And I was thinking, well, Stanford science, like, yeah, that sounds great. It's awesome. But he said, "But can you dive? Are you certified to scuba dive?" I said, "Yeah, we did some diving in the teams. Like, I can do that." And so Andrew's like, "Great. All right. Well, here's the thing. We're going to meet here in like 8 days in this spot. And then we're going to go from there." I was like, "All right." And so the closer we got to getting to this study or figuring out what was going on, I found out that, all right, it's a study about fear. And a lot of the work that Andrew was doing in his lab is, how can you use internal tools, whether it's the visual system or your breath, to mitigate stress and build resiliency or better respond to stressful circumstances. That was the study, was how can we use visual and breath to better process fear and stress. And so the closer we get to this, the more I'm starting to find out, we're going to go dive, and we're going off the coast of Mexico. And fast forward, we get to the dive site, and it turns out the way that we were going to elicit the fear response is with great white sharks. So there are 3 places, I think, in the world where you can dive with great whites: South Africa, the Farallon Islands, and Guadalupe Island. And so we were there to dive with the great whites. But the kicker was that we were actually leaving the cage to dive with these sharks. And so we would go off with a team of 4 people. We'd go down to the cage, exit the cage with 4 people, and everyone's got a quadrant that they're looking for. And I'll never forget one of the South African shark divers that was with us, extremely experienced. He said, I asked him, I was like, "All right, so what's the plan? Like, what do you do?" He said, "Well, great whites are apex predators." And I was like, "Yes, I understand that. They're at the top of the food chain. I'm at the bottom." And he said, "Well, if the great white starts to come towards you, all you do is you face it and you swim directly at it. And that, for the great white, triggers a response that it tells it that you're not a prey, and it doesn't know how to do it, and so it'll swim away. So just keep doing that and you'll be fine." And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'm not a great test taker. I've taken a lot of tests. I'm not very good at them. And I feel like this is a test I only get to take once. Like, it's a pass, fail evolution. And so I'm like, oh man. And then so I asked the next logical step and the next logical question, as like we're getting in the cage. I'm like, what happens if something goes wrong? And he laughs and he's like, he's mate, if something goes wrong, it's every man for himself. Like, there's no bailout plan. And so that didn't feel great. But I watched these guys do a few reps of it. I felt like I understood the way that the sharks are moving in the water. And yeah, I'm never going to do it again, but it was a great experience. I'm glad I had it.
And wait, you're still friends with Andrew Huberman?
It is, but I've paid it back in spades. I love to do long, cold ocean swims. I take Andrew out in the water all the time and make him suffer for it. So we're equal.
I have to say, I actually have gone to see the great white sharks in South Africa, and I did go cage diving, but our story's a little bit different because I didn't get off the boat.
Oh, yeah.
I just sat there and watched them, because once I got there and put gear on and I was ready to get into the cage, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to take a pass on this one. But they are incredible creatures, and seeing them up close is so incredible. So.
They're so beautiful. And I think the thing that is so disarming about it is, when we were in the water, there were at any given point, 7 to 11 sharks in the water. So there would be a couple big ones beneath you, some juveniles on the surface, and then, others that were just bouncing back and forth. And so you're always looking around, your head's on a swivel. But unlike Jaws or these movies, there's no sound. And so you're down there. The only sound you hear is your bubbles. And so you hear that, you see this big shark coming by and then turn towards you and face you. And you're like, man, there's no sound. It's just like deathly quiet, which is a little bit of cognitive dissonance, but really cool experience. So
I have a feeling I'd be hearing John Williams.
Yeah, that's right.
That is just remarkable. And one of the things we were looking, you have a quote that seems to be one of your favorite life lessons, or that you were quoted as one of your favorite life lessons. Enjoy it. We each have a uniquely rewarding path to walk through life, but it's on us to discover what that path is. Where did that come from to you? What does that mean to you?
I think I've grown more and more appreciative, especially over the last year. We've got thousands of members all across the country, different states, different demographics, and from 17 to 82. And what I've grown more appreciative of over time is that we're all facing something, right? It doesn't matter if it's a terminal illness, we've lost a loved one, divorced, homes burned down, job loss. We've all got something that's a unique circumstance that we're facing. When we all are also uniquely motivated, we have different values, we have different visions for our lives, we have different things that we want to achieve. And if we fail to recognize these opportunities that we have to control small moments of the day to move closer to the things that bring out the best in us or that make life the most rewarding for us, then it's a missed opportunity. And so I think that's really where I'm coming from, is that we all have this ability, we have this opportunity to savor life and all that it has, the richness of it, both the highs and the lows, and to recognize that, look, life's not about these peak experiences. It is very much about the journey and the climb, and how can we reward effort and reward challenges and find ways to grow closer to the things that we love and value over time. And I think that's what I'm working on, and that's what our members are working on with Madefor. So that's how I think about it.
And when we first connected, Pat, you talked to me a little bit about Dave Phillips and his concept of being a courage giver. I'm wondering how that plays into your message too, because I think his quote was, "Don't let the courage rot in your pocket. Give it away today."
That's it. And Dave, I think just such a wise person, and some wisdom, a lot of wisdom in those words. But this idea that you hold another person's courage in your pocket, and it's just on you to decide whether or not you want to give that to them. And so we see that with our members. We try where we can to let our members know that they're capable of more than they thought possible, and our members, through their effort every day and how they're showing up for themselves and the progress they're making, they give us courage back, that like, hey, we're on the right path here. Like, this is a worthwhile mission to serve. And so I think it is, it's so powerful to show up with that mindset, because just thinking about that or having that top of mind, you can find small ways to give people courage throughout your day that have these really, really powerful and amplified effects. And so it can be as simple as, hey, I'm walking down the street in my neighborhood, or I'm walking to the grocery store, and when I pass a stranger on the street, can I make eye contact? Can I say, hey, how's it going? Have a great day. Just lift that person up a little bit. It sounds so small, but you never know what someone else is dealing with, or where they're at, and how that can change the trajectory of the day. And if you meet the right person at the right time, you're going to feel that reverberation, and it's going to change the trajectory of your day. And so it's just a powerful and fun way, I think, to move through the world.
I saw on social media that you really stepped forward in your own courage and talked about your own mental health struggles, having 3 kids under 2 years old. And that was just so tremendously courageous and gracious and vulnerable that the mental health community really appreciates you stepping forward. And I'm wondering, how has that impacted your work at Madefor by being more vulnerable that way?
I think vulnerability is 100% a strength and an asset. And without vulnerability, you're never going to have full connection. And I think, one of the things that we talked about the other day, and I firmly believe, is that oftentimes when you see Hollywood movies or films or TV shows or whatever, books about the SEALs, it is those people are different. There is a different they're different. That's not attainable or not possible. And then there's the rest of the people. And so there's these barriers, these walls that get put up. And I think where I come from is, or the approach that I have is that, no, we're actually we're the exact same. We put our pants on one leg at a time. We're bound by the same physiology, same stressors. If I can help people realize that they have more capacity, that they have that mindset, or they have the ability to do whatever it is most important to them, I want to do that. And that's important to me. So
what strikes me too is, as you talked about it with the training earlier, you said that often those who were the fastest or the strongest were the first to tap out. And to me, what it suggests is that superpower from being quote unquote, or being maybe average, what the real power is, as you said, wading through that adversity in life. And the thing I love is, as I hear you, I'm hearing the importance of team. And even in sharing that courage, the idea of even a total stranger, you can still be a teammate. And I love that idea, because I think particularly during the pandemic, we've all felt so isolated. And this idea of, by helping someone else, you're helping everyone, you're helping yourself. And that's something that you just seem to have embodied. And I salute you for that. And again, I feel like, Susie, I've been taking notes this entire time, because you've just been, the way you communicate is so clear and so simple and so powerful.
Thank you for sharing that. We have something that we say a lot inside Madefor, and we have a whole month focused solely on connection, but it's this idea, and it comes from my experience in the teams, that teammates don't ask, they act. And so if you have this mindset that I'm going to get close to the people that I care about, I'm going to understand what their needs are, and when I identify a pain point, a need, or some way that I can lift a small burden off their shoulder, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to lean into that and get into action. And that is such a simple but powerful shift to make, because when you're on a team, or you're in a family, or you're part of an organization that operates in that way, there are no limits, and everyone is just constantly built up by everyone else.
From what I've heard from people that I've worked with in the military, one of the hardest things about leaving is the brotherhood. And what I love so much, Pat, about what you are doing is that you're creating that brotherhood and that community, and you're actually just expanding that out to everyone and saying that we can all be teammates to each other. So as a mental health clinician, I want to thank you so much for your contribution, and what you're doing makes my job so much easier in the office. And Matt and I are huge fans, so we really want to get off that waiting list so we can be part of your team as well.
We'll be lifting that soon. Well, thank you for saying that. And the feeling is mutual. Like, I know you all have a big vision for what you're doing, and you're serving people every day through the stories that you tell, and through the work that you do with your patients. And so I just, thank you for doing what you do. I think it is not this is not a hero's journey. This is a journey of, a million troops. And so we're all in this together.
We want to be respectful of your time, because we can hear the troops at home there. They may be calling for their commanding officer right there. But we do have some rapid fire questions that we like to ask to close it out. You game for that, Pat?
Fire away. Let's see. I'll do my best.
Take it away.
So what's harder, being a Navy SEAL and doing your training, swimming with sharks with Andrew Huberman, or raising 3 kids under 2?
Oh my God. 3 kids under 2. Hardest thing, no question. There's no bell. I look for it maybe once every couple of days. There's no bell to ring to be done. In SEAL training, there's always this bell that follows you. You can ring anytime you want and be done. I don't have that option. And I've asked my wife, where are you hiding the bell? And she says, it's not here. So, no.
Pat and I spoke yesterday or a couple of days ago, and he was like, does this get any easier?
Yeah, fact.
All right. If you could interview anyone alive or dead, who would it be, and what would be the question you'd most like to ask them?
Oh my God. I think it would be someone like a musician of some kind. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love Bob Marley. I would like to understand their process. And I recognize that a lot of it is just creative genius and a lot of hard work, but I just love to understand their process a little bit and see that in action. And I think, I don't know, that would be my thing.
Awesome.
So what is your favorite word or saying, and why?
Let's see. Well, I think my dad would say always the hard way. So I'm a fan of that. But I think, one of the things that I try to focus on in my life is really two words. One is savor and the other is serve. And so I want to make sure that I'm getting the most from every day, that I'm taking every opportunity that I can to savor what the day has to offer, both the good and the bad. And then the second part of that is I want to make sure that I'm serving things that are outside myself, bigger missions. And if I'm doing those two things and I'm focused on that, or I'm trying to direct my attention back to that, I find that I have great days and weeks and years. And those are probably the words that I think about.
All right. On your 100th birthday, what do you most hope people are saying about the life you lived?
And that he enjoyed life and he made it better for others.
Great.
Last question. In your career, what is the most embarrassing moment that you had, and now looking back, you find it to be hilarious?
Ooh, wow. This is, well, I'm trying to think, all right, I'm trying to think of what is safe for public consumption. Most embarrassing. Well, I was an officer in the teams, and there's officers and enlisted, and there's this friendly back and forth. I don't want to say rivalry, but enlisted give the officers a hard time, and mostly it goes that way. Officers don't really give enlisted a hard time. But I remember on one of my first operations, getting out of the Humvee and going to the target, and one of my guys tapped me on my shoulder, and he said, "Sir," I said, "Yeah." He said, "You might want to put a magazine in your rifle." And so apparently, when I got out, my rifle had bumped up, hit the Humvee, and my magazine fell out, which is what holds all your bullets. And so something you kind of want to have when you're going onto a target. So I would say that was probably a humbling experience, and I look fondly on it now because the people that I worked with in the teams, again, the best quiet professionals on the planet. Like, you couldn't find a higher caliber level of people to be working alongside, to serving alongside. And they just embodied an ethos and a mindset that was pretty exceptional. And I love being a part of it and cherish every moment that I had with those guys.
Just incredible. Wow. Incredible stories. We appreciate your time. So what is next, and where can people find you, Pat?
Yeah, so we're continuing to work hard on Madefor and serve our members. We should be lifting that wait list soon. So if anyone is interested in joining a future class with Madefor, you can go to our website, www.getmadefor.com. You can put your email address in there. We'll share some really great content. We're very sensitive to people's attention and making sure when we have it, that it's useful for them. So you can share your email there, and we'll let you know when the class window opens up. You can find us on Instagram @Madefor. And if you want to follow me, you can find me @Madefor_Pat. So those are the three places. And I hope would love to cross paths with you all again soon. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for your time, Pat. We're really grateful.
Amazing.
Just awesome. Amazing, Pat. We appreciate it. Thank you.